and Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly to analyze the law, and here she is. Now, you actually read it, unlike the Attorney General?
Yeah, no.
Unlike the Homeland Security Chief?
Yes.
Unlike the President? We don't believe he read it either. It could be wrong.
Unlike
you
have
read it.
Officials.
And how long is it?
It depends on how you print it out. It's any place between 10 and 18 pages.
And how long did it take you, Megyn Kelly, to read?
It took me about an hour.
Oh, an hour! Now, were you reading it while your hair was getting done and other stuff?
In the commercial breaks on my show, I managed to squeeze it in.
So you read, it took you an hour, a full hour.
Not only did I read the law, but I actually read case law, U.S. Supreme Court history, and other interpretations of that law. And I have to tell you, this is the first time I've taken a seriously hard look at the claim that this is just like the federal law, and the claim that, you know, by the detractors that it's actually discrimination, or will lead to discrimination more so than the federal law. And my legal opinion is, it is a little bit like the federal law, but if anything, it's less problematic. Did you know that the Supreme Court already ruled a few years ago that under federal law, cops can pull you over for no reason and demand to see your immigration papers? That for no reason. They don't have to have reasonable suspicion. It was called Mueller versus Menya back in 2005. It was a unanimous Supreme Court decision.
And what was the lawsuit about?
And that was about under what circumstances can a police officer stop you and ask you certain questions. And the court, this is written by then Chief Justice Rehnquist, who said in that case, hold on, let me get it because it's here in front of me someplace. He said, the officers did not need reasonable suspicion to ask Menya for her name, date, and place of birth, or immigration status. The cops do not need reasonable suspicion to ask you about immigration status.
What was the
under Arizona law, they do.
Okay,
They do.
Yeah,
Arizona's tougher.
What was the reasoning by Rehnquist and the other 8 justices that the police can ask?
Because they went through sort of the standards of detention. There's sort of like a brief passing on the street. There's something that's greater than that, sort of a detention, and there's like full-on arrest and custody. And the standard that the cops like to follow in questioning you or stopping you under each one of those. And they basically said that when it's just like a passing kind of thing, when they want to see your ID, they want to check your immigration
status. The police have a right to know who's in the neighborhood,
yes.
Who's driving.
So you could be harassed by federal law enforcement, much more so than you could in Arizona, where they say you do have to have reasonable
suspicion. So the Arizona bill, then you have to have an association with the police ongoing for them to ask.
Can I just make it clear, though, in Arizona, not only in Arizona you have to have reasonable suspicion for stopping somebody in the first place.
Right.
So there has to be, they call it a lawful stop or detention or arrest. So that's number one, not required under federal law. And number two, there has to be a reasonable suspicion to then inquire into your immigration status, not required under federal law. And number three, under Arizona law, you cannot consider the person's race in determining whether you have that reasonable suspicion. Also not a problem under federal law.
That's where it becomes problematic. So what's reasonable suspicion to, reasonable suspicion to me would be you can't produce your driver's license or an insurance card.
Right.
And that's what I think it is.
Right.
Now, the final thing in this law is, what is upsetting Barack Obama, Calderon, the American left, is that Mexicans, Mexican-Americans, Mexicans themselves are going to be the targets because Arizona is being overwhelmed by Mexicans. That's what's coming. So therefore, when you single out Mexicans, that's discriminatory.
It will be a factor, even though
it will be
it's
a factor,
supposed to be.
because if it were Canada we're having trouble with, it would be Canadian.
Well, listen, even to the extent that they're right, that there's a legitimate, fear that the police are going to misapply the law and not follow the law.
That's speculation.
I know, but listen, that's their complaint. They've already filed a law, so ACLU. But there is a federal statute that would speak to that. It's called the 1983 action. You can sue cops if they do something discriminatory
and they can't prove they had the thing.
That's the remedy.
So there is checks and balances on this law all day long.
Yeah.
So the last question is, if this is true, if what you've read and all the research that you've done that says federal law is much harsher than the Arizona state law, why is there this outcry at all? Why is President Obama we know why Calderon's doing it. He needs the money, so we know that. But why does Obama line himself up against 86% of the country? 86% of the country agrees with you, Kelly, which is frightening, but they do. All right, and President is setting himself up against the 86%.
I'll tell you why, because I come on here as a legal analyst because I practiced law for 9 years. I don't think he's looking at it as a
But
lawyer.
he's a lawyer.
I don't think he's looking at it as a lawyer. I think he's looking at it as a politician.
But he's got 86%. If he's a politician, he's a dumb
Well,
one.
so then get Carl Cameron on here to explain to you why that makes sense for
Does
him.
that make sense to you?
But I have to say, as a legal matter, I don't see what the fuss is about.
But as a politician, if you were advising as
Well,
one
the Hispanic vote is a very important part of this country.
you have 86% of the public against your take.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems to be suicide to me.
All I can speculate is that the Hispanic vote is a very important voting bloc.
75% of Democrats support the right of the police to ask. That has to include almost every Hispanic.
Yeah, that question's for Carl Cameron.
All right. Megyn Kelly, we're going to hold her over here because we have a lesbian military controversy that she's been looking into. And by the way, you can see